Hi, welcome to this bonus episode for our Android Basics course. So time and again we'll be putting bonus content for this course which will be available as a free upgrade. So today we'll be discussing permissions on Android. So if you have been using Android or iOS or any mobile operating system, you might have seen the pop-ups where Android will actually ask you whether you want to allow the app to access your photos, contacts, files, or even Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. Now this is basically done to prevent malicious apps from accessing data that they should not, and also to prevent your privacy. So Android also has permissions defined which allows apps to access certain data only when the user or the system has allowed the app to access those. So there are some permissions which are called normal permissions and others which are called dangerous permissions. Normal permissions are those which will be granted as soon as your app is installed, something like accessing internet. But there are other permissions which are dangerous and which need certain level of approval. This can be signature based, where you have to sign the app with a key which will allow you to access those permissions, or the permission has to be requested from the user at runtime. So in a nutshell, we have install time permission, runtime permissions, and special permissions. Special permissions are generally meant for very specialized apps such as third-party OEM apps or original equipment manufacturer permissions, which are only given using signatures, so which are not applicable for third-party app developers. So we'll only focus on install time and runtime. So install time permissions are something like internet. If you remember our last customer list app, we had added this internet permission. We didn't have to request the user to grant it. As soon as the app is installed, this internet permissions will be provided to the app. So if I go back to the apps which are there on the Google Play Store, so this is the new Google Meet app which is used for conducting virtual meetings. So as you can imagine, it will require microphones, camera, and of course internet. So if I go to permission details, I can see that it needs access to microphone, it needs your contact so that you know whom to add or whom to call, and then it can identify contacts or accounts on the device. It can directly call phone numbers, it can access the camera, take pictures and videos, and if you see here, it has full network access. So this line actually comes from the internet permission. So likewise, there are multiple permissions defined in Android. So if you go search for permissions on Android and go to this manifesto permission, you can see there are almost more than 30-40 permissions which are there. So generally in normal app development, you will not be going through all of them. Mostly you will be accessing camera or external storage with read and write accesses, or very rarely microphone, but you will mostly be using internet permissions because now all the apps run with the backend. So for this bonus video, what we will do is we will try to build a simple app where we will try to access images from the user's gallery. So let us start with an empty project. Go to File, New Project, choose the empty activity. We can just name it permission demo. It's Kotlin, it's 4.4, and let's finish. Okay, so our new app is ready. If you remember, we were using, so if you remember, we had to make changes for view binding. So let us first do that. We'll just go to module build Gradle, choose view binding equal to true, then press sync now. So our activity binding variable should be ready by now. So we'll just go private latenant var binding activity main binding. So as you can see, our binding is ready and we just have to initialize it. Okay, we use the layout inflator and pass the context, and instead of setting the layout file, we'll be setting binding.root. Okay, now let's go to our layout, and first of all remove this text view. What we need, okay, let's go back to design. What we need is an image view on the top. So if you want to give a default image, you can use this, and then we'll also need a button. Okay, we'll just align the button to all the sides so that it is always in the center. Change the margin to 0. Okay, and then align image with the top, left and right, and bottom of the image view to, okay, this is anyways aligned, should be fine. Okay, so we have an image view and a button to start picking up the images from the gallery. So now if you remember, this demo is about permissions. We also need to add the read external storage permission. So users, go to manifest under this manifest folder here, and then outside the application tag add this permission. Okay, read external storage. This will allow your app to access the SD card in the mobile phone. Now the code that we are using, it sometimes works without even adding this permission, so don't think that this permission is unnecessary. When you start developing with different vendors of Android like Samsung, Oppo, Mi, some of the phones will start throwing error if this permission is not defined. Other thing about this permission is that this is a dangerous permission, and it is also runtime, which means that we will need to ask the user to explicitly grant it to us. So we will have to show that request permissions pop up. So how do we do that? Because our app is meant for Android 4.4 and above, and these runtime permissions were only introduced above Marshmallow, so we will need some code to actually enable this permissions part. So only if the current build, so build dot version dot SDK int, okay, so this SDK int corresponds to the build version of the Android phone or the simulator or the emulator that you are running it on. So if I click here, you will see that this is the SDK version of the software which is running on the hardware. Okay, so if you're running it on a Marshmallow device, it will be something like 27, and if you're running it on KitKat, it will be like 19 or 20. So only if the current build SDK is more than M, greater than or equal to M, then we will check first if the permission has already been granted or not. So if check self permission manifest dot permission dot, okay, let me see if manifest is imported. This is the wrong manifest, so we need the Android manifest. Read external storage is not equal to package manager dot permission granted. So the permission names are stored in manifest.permission, and the granted or not or denied are stored in package manager. So these constants are in different places. I don't know why they did that. So if it is not granted, then we will request this permissions. So array of, again, manifest dot permission dot read external storage. So we just have to do this. This will actually show the pop-up to the user, something like this. So just that code will show this pop-up to the user, which will say allow the app, or in our case permission demo, to access photos, media and files on your device, which will allow our app to pick the images which the user wants to see. Now there is one more parameter here. We need to pass a constant. Okay. Now this is the part where we request the permission. So if the app is running on a version which is less than M, the permission will automatically be granted. If the app is running on M or above, we will ask the user to grant those permission to us. Now the user might accept or deny the permission to us. So how do we check it? So there is a callback method called onRequest permission result, which will come back with the request code that we passed here, which is request perms, the permissions array that we had passed for request, and the grant results. These grant results will correspond to whether it is granted or denied. So it can be 0 or -1. So we let the super call be there. We will just check if the request code is equal to our request code, and if grant results 0 is equal to package manager dot granted, then we know that the permission has been granted. Okay, alt enter to import it, and then if not, then log.e So as soon as we launch this app, we will first check whether the app is running on a phone which is greater than or equal to M, and then we will check if the permission is not granted, then we will request the permission. The result will come in this callback method, and we will again check whether he has granted us or not. So because the user can always go to settings app and go into your app details and uncheck or deny your permission there, it is always better to check the app as soon as he clicks the button, or whenever you are going to perform an action that requires that permission. So in our case, we have the button. If you remember, we just had to create one method on image pick view. So now if I go to the layout, I can go to the button code, and I can just click on image pick image. Yeah. So as soon as I click that button, this method will get called, and ideally I should also check again if the permission has been granted or not. So if by any chance when we come here and the permission has still not been granted, yeah, so Android Studio is telling me to execute this code you need to be on more than M, so I'll copy this code also. Okay, fine. So if again we are running on greater than M or more, and if the permission has not been granted, we will tell the user that to use this feature to pick an image, you first have to assign that permission to us. So we will again try to show him a pop-up. So if he has already denied the permission, Android will not show the pop-up to us. So in that case, we need to show him a dialog box and tell him to go to settings, go to our app, and then enable that permission manually. So this, yes, requires a little bit of code from us. So first we need to write a method to open the settings app. So come out of your class, come out of your main activity class, and we'll write an extension function. Why extension? So that it can be used by other activities later. So we will assign it to context, open app system settings. We'll use that activity, and we will define we will import intent and then define it. So action is equal to settings dot action application detail settings. Okay, so this will take you to the details page of your application. Then you need to pass one more parameter, which is data, and which is your package manager. So whatever unique package that you have selected, it has to be prefixed with package colon slash slash, which this utility method will do it for us. So package name and no other query parameters. So this is the method which will launch the settings app for us and take the user directly to the details page. He can then click on permissions and then assign that permission to us if he is still willing to do that. So now we just need to show the dialog. So we will use alert dialog builder. Okay, set message. So we can inform him that to use this feature, please grant read or files access permission. Then we will need to assign two buttons just to be polite. This will say go to settings, positive button, which will come up on the right hand side, and we will have to define a anonymous class here. It has two parameters, dialog and which. Okay, no need for this actually. This is Kotlin. Okay, so if he selects that he wants to go to settings, then we will just open the system settings. There will also be a negative button which will just say cancel. He doesn't want to use the feature because he doesn't want to provide the permission. And then finally we show the alert dialog. Okay, so this part of code is also ready. And if all this has happened, then we need to return back from here because we don't want the rest of the code to be executed. Now if the permission is there, or if the app is running on a phone which is on less than M, then we will go and directly launch our intent, which will try to pick content for us. So same, we will be using intent to launch it. We will define another intent, which will now use intent dot action get content. Intent dot type is equal to image slash star. This is actually the MIME type or the type of the content that we are looking for. We are only looking to pick up images. And then finally we start the activity. Start activity for result, because we want the callback to come back to us with the details of the image that the user has picked up. So we will also use a chooser which will show the options to the user to pick which app he wants to use. Needs a title which is not displayed actually, and then again we need a request param which will be pick photo code, or just maybe pick photo. Okay, we'll make it 1002. Okay, this actually goes inside the chooser. Okay, so don't worry about this cross here, it just means that this has been deprecated recently, but it is still supported. So let us just go through whatever code we have written. So at the launch or the start of the activity itself, we are checking whether the permission has been granted or not. If not, we will ask the user to grant us the permission. In the callback for permission, we are again checking and logging whether the permission was granted or denied. If the user clicks on the image pick button, we are first checking again whether the permission is granted. If not, we will show him an alert dialog and tell him to go to settings to give us that permission. Otherwise, we will just launch an activity to pick the image. So now we need to write the code to pick those images. First, we need a method which will help us to read the image which is coming back from the picker activity. So when you launch this picker activity, it will actually return you an URI. URI is similar to URL, and it will look like content : / so something like this, content : / and it will have all the path to your galleries, something like this, SD card / photos / your image .jpeg, so something like that. So this is just the path of the image on your phone. Now we need to start reading that URI and return a bitmap from it. So we will start reading the image using a file input stream, and then we will convert it to a bitmap. So let us first define an image which is of type bitmap. Okay, and we will just return it at the end. Now in between there are certain things to take care of, like all these operations might cause an IO exception. So if that happens, we will just print stack trace. So now there are two methods to read the image from a URI. One is available from API level 27, which is introduced recently in 8.1. So if build.version.sdkint is greater than 27, 27 is 8, so features available from above 8. We need to define a source first, which will use the image decoder class, which is the new class used for decoding images. So you can see it has a lot of methods. We are interested in this content resolver, which also uses the URI. Okay, so we will pass this dot content resolver and the photo URI. So once we have this source, we will then create the bitmap, which will use the source. In the else part, which means we are running 27 or less, we will use an old method which uses media store. So media store.images, media store.images. You can see that the method has been deprecated. So that is why we are only using it for older versions. So the parameters remain the same: content resolver and photo URI. Okay, so we have written the method which will help us read the image and convert it to bitmap, so that finally we can display it in the image view that we have created. Okay, so the last thing that we need is to process the result which comes back from the picker activity. So for that we need on activity result, which will again have result, request code and result code. So if the request code is equal to photo, then and if intent dot data is not equal to null, which means that the user has successfully picked an image. If he just presses cancel, this will all be null. Then we will do binding dot image view dot set image bitmap, load from URI, and we will just pass the intent dot data. Okay, so yes, everything is done. It doesn't show any error. So let us run it and see. So you see our code is running, and as soon as the activity is launched, we are asking the user to allow access to photos media on the device. So just for testing purposes, I will press deny. So now if I still want to see and pick an images, we will show this alert dialog which will tell the users, if you want to use this feature, please grant files access permission. So I will click go to settings. You can see it will take you, so you can see it has taken me directly to the details of my app settings. Here I can see in permissions that no permissions have been granted. Now I can actually go here, click on the denied permission and allow access to media only. Okay, so this is done. Okay, I messed up something, but let us just start the app again. Now because the permission is already being granted, you will not see that pop up again. And now if I select pick image, it will come here. So you can see there are no images here. That is because this is an emulator. So you can just drag and drop. So you can just drag and drop images on the emulator, and they will then get copied to the download folder. So yeah, you can see. So as soon as I click on the image, it should have actually gone back and shown the rows here. Somehow something has gone wrong. Intent data, you can see this is the URI of the image that we have selected. It's not null. Okay, now I know what is the problem. So this intent actually maps to the intent of this activity and not to this intent. So we actually need to use data and data. Yeah, pretty bad actually. Because this activity was not launched with any additional information, this was always null. So we have modified the code. Yes, you can see it has picked up the image. So yeah, even So yes, our permissions demo is done. So we have seen how we can handle runtime permissions and also the scenario where the user actually denies you the permission, how to send into settings and get the data back, and how to read it and show it to the user. So this is it for this bonus session. See you soon. Thanks for watching.